Now, when it comes down to it, do we really need the fastest CPUs out there, the fastest graphics cards, the fastest NVMe, the fastest SSD, the fastest, the best, or liquid cooling? We should talk about little individual bits, but what we'll do a little series. Now, let's talk about CPUs. Do you need the fastest CPU like the 9900K or the 3900X or the 3950X when that comes out? No, you don't. For gaming, we're talking about gaming, strictly gaming right here. We're going to look on overclockers right now, and I really want to build up a whole structure of like the build, like the CPU, graphics card and all that, but it will take too long to obviously go through all of that. So this is no build here or nothing like that. So if you want to see a build, check out my other videos. There'll be a link in the description down below. I've done hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of builds. And actually I haven't done thousands of builds online, but there is hundreds and hundreds of builds and everything speaking about overclocking and all that sort of stuff. But let's talk about a CPU. So you've got the I don't know why I've just gone to motherboards. We go to components right now. So where are we? Where's components? Let's go to Intel CPU. So at the moment it's £500. Used to be like a lot more than that, but it's gone down in price because we've got competition now. We've got competition. But technically, now if you're just gaming, like with any kind of game, do you need that kind of CPU? You don't. Because that CPU is a really high-end CPU and there's not a lot of difference between other CPUs when it comes to gaming. There really isn't. NVMe's, graphic cards, well, it depends. The 2080 Ti, there's a big performance boost from a 2080 or a 2070 or a 2060 or the Super 2070 or 2080. There is a difference with that. But 2080 Ti is kind of like a big stage, but we don't even really use ray tracing at the moment. It's kind of ray tracing is a bit like RGB. It's kind of like tempered glass. It's kind of like a little phase. So if I was to start off and have like a computer component, I wanted to get a new computer component that was up to date, because later on down the line I might want to stream or something like that. So here we've got the Intel Core 9900K. This is £500. It's damn expensive if you look at it in the world of gaming. A world of gaming is just so expensive these days because everyone wants the best, but they're not really getting that much difference because it's only what the developers do in their games, in their engines, is like what the game can actually do. There's nothing really more they can do with it. The graphics card is kind of the one that does everything, or if you're going to be using like your media, so you're going to be watching YouTube or doing a bit of video editing and all that sort of stuff, that's where it gets a little bit confusing. But if we're talking about strictly gaming, you don't even need that. Like what you could even go to say like the Core i5 8600K, that's $278.99, or even the 8400 Core i5 8400 at £184. We could even go lower than that, or we could even go for a Core i5 6600K. That is like what two years ago now, Skylake. So we had Skylake and then Kaby Lake, and Kaby Lake's a cover up with Skylake. So if you were to buy Kaby Lake, you'd be kicking yourself. If you go for Coffee Lake is quite stable and everything like that. But remember, we all have these problems and loopholes and all of this stuff where we've got problems with all the Intel Core processors where it had certain leaks where people can do malicious stuff to your CPU and stuff like that. But let's just talk about gaming strictly. So what is like a starting off CPU that you wouldn't even notice the difference in? So if I go down, let's go to the cheapest kind of thing, because most computer CPUs will just work. Right, so technically the G4 900, you could start off with that for a gaming, £52.99, or even that one. There's not much of a difference between that. There's like 10 megahertz different from that one. That's 3.10 and that's 3.20, and that's like about £3 or £2 difference. So I wouldn't have bothered about that. But if you go up a little bit in price, so this would get you gaming. You would be able to game. It will just be a little bit of a struggle. I think it's dual core CPU, so it means that it's going to work. Normally games work really well with dual core anyway. Some of the games work really well with quad core, the newer games and stuff. But if you were just gaming and you wanted to play a game, think about it. Why do these companies do so many different CPUs, so many different graphics cards and everything like that for gaming? And technically we come from consoles. If you look at it, consoles have got like one standard graphics card, one standard CPU, motherboard, power supply, everything that lasts for years. But yet you can put a game in and it could be generations, like years, and it still plays exactly the same. Still gonna be waiting for that loading time. But you don't see any, what's it called? When you've got the display and it messes up because the graphics card's not powerful enough on the game. There's not a game that they've brought out for a console, for the Xbox or PlayStation, that's going to make it not work properly. So when we're talking about gaming should be cheap, really. Games should be cheap, but they're not. They're really expensive because you've got people like us, which I'm really am to blame, because it's like, oh, we need this really expensive CPU, really expensive motherboard, really expensive graphics card. We need everything expensive to run things, but I use things differently. I use it for video editing, I use it for proxy as well, so I need more cores to do things. But if you've got more cores, that means it's going to be more hot. And you can't use just a simple CPU air cooler or a simple AIO cooler. You need to have more custom water cooling. The more cores you got, the more heat that happens. And if the more heat happens, the more your computer slows down. For gaming, we only can hit that certain level for gaming. If you've got, and then it goes down to a case. If you've got a case that literally starves your components, then your computer will run hot. Now, what is a good place to run hot? Now, if you don't care about your computer, running hot is like 70 to 80 degrees. Your CPU, graphics card, and all that stuff doesn't work very well, and it won't work for a long time. Now, if you've got a case that breathes really well, then obviously you're going to probably be spending more money, but there's so much competition out there. It's really difficult. So this is why I'm just going to talk about gaming, because it's going to start to get very complex very quickly. So if I was to start off to get a computer and I wanted to get into gaming and I want my computer to be better than a console or just as good as a console, but I want to stop gaming and then go onto the internet and then do emails and all that sort of stuff, like what computers are meant to be for, then I would start off with a CPU that would be, a dual core will get you in. RAM 2600 megahertz, that would be the starting level for DDR4. Your CAS level or your latency, it's not going to matter because you're obviously going for the cheaper components. Only that matters when you're going up and you're going kind of the top tier. And when you're going top tier, that's when you're looking at like top tier, like CPU 9900K, 3900X by AMD. But you got the motherboards that need to be able to cool it down, so you need good heat sinks on the motherboard. What is a good company for that? So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be talking a little bit more complex and a little bit more in depth about the computer components you should get. But if I'm talking about gaming computers should be cheap. So if they should be cheap, it should be any CPU that starts off like 4920. But if you're talking about streaming, then obviously you're going to need to have a more powerful CPU, more powerful graphics card, more graphics card that's definitely more heavy to handle with the streaming, because you've got bit rate, you've got proxies, you've got the CPU that has to do more stuff, so you've got streaming and gaming, and then your frame rates will drop, so you need more memory on the graphics card, more memory on the computer and the motherboard. It's just so intense. So if we're talking about gaming, CPU, I would start off with like a £55 CPU. There's no problem with that. It's going to make your games work. You're going to be able to make Grand Theft Auto. The difference is, though, if we're going to talk a little bit more complex about it, if we're going to say that we can play with Grand Theft Auto, Grand Theft Auto is going to need more of a stronger graphics card. So more like a RX 550 or a 560, maybe 4 gigabytes of memory or 8 gigabytes. And then you've got the RX range and the NVIDIA range. So you want to go with 28, a 2060, a 2070. When you're going up to those sort of graphics cards, that's when you can start to play on a high level. Now, if you're playing on competition level, most people don't have really powerful graphics cards. They have lower end graphics cards because technically they're using a TN screen. And a TN screen is where you're going to have to be looking at the screen straight away. And that's going to be another video as well. Monitors. What monitors should I buy? Because people think IPS. I wish they make 4K IPS screens and then I could see all these frame rates per second. When you do that, then you need a faster CPU chip. You need a faster graphics card. You need a better motherboard to have a cooling solution. You need water cooling. Even if you've got a big fan cooling solution, then you're talking about you need a bigger case and starts getting more complex. So let's talk about gaming strictly. Get a CPU that's really cheap. Get a graphics card that's strictly cheap. Get a motherboard that's decent. if you like to do a bit of dibbling and dabbling, you can go into overclocking and overclock your CPU, but technically if you go to Intel's like range, then you're not going to be able to overclock on that range. So if you go to AMD, because AMD are the newest thing going around, but there's problems at the moment with AMD CPUs and their motherboards, so that's another tricky little question or answer to give you. So if I go into CPUs though, there's a better price. Look, we've got the 3900X, is still on pre-order. I've got mine just in the studio, but not even doing anything with it at the moment, if you're wondering why I haven't done anything with that. Obviously I had a problem with the MSI motherboard, but yeah. So if we start off, we can go to the Ryzen range, which is the first edition. They've got BIOS updates. It's been a little bit more stronger, but you need more expensive RAM. So technically you might as well go for the next Ryzen range, which would be Zen, well, we should go to Zen like 5. I would say that's a decent CPU. It's like 12, actually that's way too overkill, to be honest with you. But it's still not bad in the price range if you look at it like that. So look, there we go, Ryzen 5 3400G, which could obviously, you can use that without a graphics card. It's like APU, but APU is not exactly powerful, but it can still game. It still works, so it's $137.99. So you got your graphics, which are onboard graphics through the CPU, and then get a motherboard, which would be quite cheap. So they're doing like little deals here. What's a good deal for a motherboard like that? And we're backwards compatible, so that's cool. AMD. So if we went to this range, look at that, $51.95. That is a good deal, $54.95. Obviously the heatsink's not that great. Asus does have some sort of problems, but you do need to BIOS up to date, get your BIOS up to date. When your BIOS is up to date, then it will work really nice. But yeah, these are pretty solid boards. They're not like anything special. If you do to overclock, you can overclock a little bit, but you're gonna find a bit of heat. You just find little deals. Anyway, I'm talking so long about this video, but when it comes to gaming, just buy the cheapest stuff. There's no real difference unless you're gonna be doing other things like streaming and doing things to do with websites, using Illustrator and Photoshop's a little bit more complicated because people think that you need more memory, but the memory comes down to storage, because your storage acts as memory on Photoshop. So the more pictures that you do that are much bigger, then obviously it takes more memory from the storage, which is really confusing. You just think it's just onboard memory. Anyway, subscribe, share, follow me on all social media platforms. If you like these kind of videos, leave your comments down below, obviously, and share this video like crazy. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Roger and out.